So Steppenwolf is the big bad guy of the Justice League movie, and lots of people were super confused about who that even is. I mean, hell, even big comic fans like myself were in the dark. I love DC Comics, but the only Steppenwolf that I knew about was the old rock band. But here's the thing. The reason why this character flew under the radar is because he was like, never really a thing. Now, don't get me wrong, just because he's only appeared in a few books, that doesn't mean that he isn't an absurdly complicated character. Wikis were like zero help to even begin unraveling this very strange dude, but I'm going to try and break him down. Steppenwolf first appeared in New Gods number 7 in 1972 and was created by Jack Kirby. He is from a race of supremely powerful beings called, well, the New Gods, and is the uncle of fan-favorite character, Darkseid. But before this baby bald boy took over as the ruler of the world Apocalypse, Darkseid worked behind the scenes to ignite a war against the world of New Genesis. To do this, he convinced Steppenwolf to join him on a trip over there to just kill some folks, for fun. The duo stumbled across the Prince of New Genesis, Isaiah, and his wife, Avia, and quickly got to work. Steppenwolf did his best to take Isaiah down, but while rushing over to save her husband, Avia leapt in front of the lethal blast. Darkseid stepped in to finish the job, but it turns out that he only pretended to kill Isaiah. So when the prince came to, he sought revenge for his fallen wife, thus kicking off the war between Apocalypse and New Genesis that Darkseid had wanted. Despite not trusting his nephew, Steppenwolf continued to work alongside Darkseid and even directly help out on occasion. For example, centuries ago when they encountered the extremely powerful being Doomsday, Steppenwolf saved Darkseid's life by convincing him to not engage further. The two of them even worked together in order to kill the Queen of Apocalypse, thus allowing Darkseid to assume the throne. For his help, Darkseid continued to allow his uncle to lead the world's army, and he even gave him an elite unit of dog cavalry soldiers. They're just a bunch of dudes on big dogs. Yet these good boys wouldn't be enough to keep Steppenwolf alive, and during a climactic battle, he was killed by Isaiah. But death would not be enough to keep Steppenwolf down, and spoiler alert, he dies a lot. After his first death, Darkseid had him resurrected, where he continued to not really do much of anything. I mean, he fought Isaiah's son, Mr. Miracle, and was nearly killed for murdering his mother, but he was spared, so hey, at least he got out of that one. Now, to be fair, the next time that Steppenwolf was killed off was because a ton of new gods were axed in the appropriately named series, Death of the New Gods, and a bunch of them were reborn into mortal human forms. Steppenwolf was one such character, and he was in charge of the Darkside Club, an illegal casino for the ultra-rich that included metahuman gladiatorial matches. Being more or less an average human at this point, Steppenwolf was killed off again, but this time it was by a villain named Clock King. But man, it was brutal. This would be the last time that we saw Steppenwolf, at least in this universe, because in 2011, DC had their big reboot and completely started their comic book universe from scratch. This time around, Steppenwolf was a much more prominent character, but even then, he was still pretty minor. Like, the number 2 is literally twice the size of the number 1, but 2 is still a pretty small number, all things considered. What the hell even is this analogy? So the first Justice League storyline after the reboot featured the formation of the team in order to stop Darkseid from invading Earth with his apocalyptian forces. After lots of big fights, the baddies were stopped when Cyborg opened up a bunch of boom tubes and just teleported everyone away, with Steppenwolf being trapped in the alternate universe of Earth 2, where he apparently had a kid with that world's Wonder Woman. This daughter, Donna, would grow up to become the villain, Fury. But of course, trying to change a bad boy does not work out, and when Steppenwolf launched a full-on invasion of Earth 2, he killed Wonder Woman, followed immediately by Superman on the very next page. Yeah, this dude is actually really tough, he just never gets a chance to shine. Ultimately though, Steppenwolf was beaten by Batman, who pulled off a big scheme, but he lost his life in the process. And now defeated, Steppenwolf had to lay low for about 5 years. Okay, so quick pause for a second. When doing research for this video, I referred to official DC sources in order to establish a proper timeline of events, but it turns out that even DC Comics themselves doesn't seem to know what's up with their stories. You see, the official DC Comics Encyclopedia hardcover that was released in 2016 catalogs all of the Earth 2 events as I just described them, but their online encyclopedia says that Darkseid sent Steppenwolf to Earth 2 before launching the invasion of the main universe. Now, I give a lot of shit to comic book wikis for getting stuff wrong all the time, and I mean all the time. But DC, I know for a fact that some of your employees do watch my videos, so please, get your shit together. It's not hard. But no hard feelings? Please invite me to more exclusive events. That last one in Los Angeles was a lot of fun, and I want to go to more. Thank you. Anyway, while in hiding, Steppenwolf built a new team, which included a clone of Superman made on Apocalypse named Vydal and his aforementioned daughter, Fury. Together, they took over the country of Dannen and defeated the World Army, which is exactly what it sounds like. Upon the army's defeat, Steppenwolf claimed Earth for himself instead of Darkseid, but Vydal, ever the Apocalyptian loyalist, killed Steppenwolf on the spot for his treason. But here's the thing. All of Steppenwolf's death beforehand had been very different from this one. See, the new gods are extremely complicated, but basically when they travel to mortal worlds, they're actually just reflecting aspects of themselves, kind of like light through a prism, because comics. In the past, Steppenwolf was killed by other new gods in the realm of the new gods. Or in the case of when he went up against Clock King, that was when he was reincarnated in a mortal body. It really doesn't matter too much anyway though, because when Vydal killed Steppenwolf, that was the first time that we had seen him die after the reboot. Apparently though, Darkseid forgave his uncle's betrayal, and Steppenwolf was once again at his side during the crazy all over the place event known as Darkseid War. But despite his rise to prominence with the Earth 2 stuff, Steppenwolf was barely seen or used here. And at the time of this recording, that's pretty much it. Oddly enough, Steppenwolf is frequently seen in the various cartoon series over the years, but much like his comic book counterpart, he's not really dived into. I mean, hell, his most prominent role in anything to date was as the main villain in the Justice League movie. But even then, he's just a boring gray monster with generic motivations and like zero characterization. I really think that Steppenwolf could be a fun character if he was given just a little bit of attention, or, you know, if he stayed alive long enough to actually do something. But anyway, the new gods are some of the most complicated bullshit in all of comic books, and I hope I was able to make this make at least a little sense. And if I didn't, try watching this video again. I am extremely desperate for the views. But hey, if you like this video, then why not consider subscribing or even watching another one? And if you're into all the convoluted nonsense that is DC Comics, well hey, this is the channel for you, and might I suggest the video that I did on the inner workings of the DC multiverse. I think the video is really good, and maybe you will too. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.